You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 10, A Moral Star, Part 2.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Norman Lau. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss every episode of this animated series, discover what makes each of them so incredibly special, and see if there are any morals, meanings, or messages that we or the audience have learned.
This week, episode 10 of Moral Star Part 2. Two numbers, so confusing. But please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth review podcast. So if you have not seen A Moral Star Part 2, you may want to put us on pause. We'll wait. Welcome back. So nice to have you. And then, stick around and let us talk about it.
And this show is produced for both YouTube, thank you for watching, and as a regular podcast, thank you for listening. So be sure to engage the like button and subscribe button to Mission Log Prodigy, especially on YouTube, because that helps us get seen by everyone else so we can start sharing the show and making a bigger audience. And then you can also hear the audio version on Roddenberry Entertainment on podcasts.roddenberry.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, the drill, where your podcasts are, where you listen to all the stuff that makes your ear holes happy. You can also find Mission Log Prodigy on Twitter at missionlog_prodigy. That's ML_prodigy to keep up with all the latest news and updates and me selfishly retweeting everyone else's more intelligent things that they have to say.
Our Twitter's a good time, friends. You should definitely come and follow. But
I think so, yeah.
Before we jump into the recap, here is why our podcast is so unique. We want to hear from you, especially the younger listeners, the little teeny tiny Murph fans out there who would like to share your thoughts on our show. So please send a 1 to 2 minute voice message to missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. That is missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. And in your message, answer the following question. What is your first name and your age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And what did you learn? And we are so excited to hear your comments, which will be featured at the end of the show. And just to start things off, we're going to show you how to do it, and we're going to answer these exact same questions. So, Norm, did you like the episode?
All right. So this is one of those kind of episodes where I'm trying to figure out, do I like the episode because it answers all the questions and asks some new questions? Or is it because it's a great episode by itself? I think yes to both. I think it wraps up this 10-arc story really well. I loved it, but differently than episode 9. Much differently. Yeah.
That's interesting. I think I do like it. It is a mid-season finale, which means that it has different things it has to accomplish than a typical episode. And it's interested in doing things beyond just simply telling a story. It has to wrap up loose threads. It has to set up conflict for the next 10 episodes. And I think by those merits, I think it succeeds.
Yeah. It does what it's supposed to do, but it doesn't necessarily make me feel the feels like episode 9 did. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you kind of maybe have to look at them as a movie, right? Of a piece. Okay, but what was your favorite part?
Admiral Catherine Janeway. Oh my God.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers early.
But they were supposed to wait and watch it and pause and come back.
I know. I'm just teasing.
I know, but yeah, Catherine Janeway. I was not expecting that. I wasn't expecting to see the ship she was on. I loved seeing it was amazing. And seeing the new uniforms-ish. Much controversy about if they tie into Lower Decks or not. I don't think that's controversial. I think that's a good question. Continuity in this series, so we'll see. But yeah, her performance was very on point. Catherine Mulgrew's performance was back in Janeway's voice. Not hologram Janeway or goth Janeway or, but Janeway, right? How about you?
The justice for the Caddy and Orphan, which we've been holding out for what feels like 100 years. I mean, since last year, since a million years ago.
A million years ago.
Million. That moment really, that was the first moment where I teared up. So it was definitely my favorite part of the whole episode. And last question, big question. What did you learn?
So revenge is a dish that is best served cold. It's an old Klingon proverb. But when you really look at it, revenge really hurts everybody. You know, even if your intentions were good, the fallout of revenge is never, ever, ever good. And we saw that with Zero and what happened to Gwyn. So I hope that's a lesson learned by everybody. That's what I came away with, because in my life experience, I've learned that as well.
For me, it was Gwyn's statement where she said one tragedy can't be traded for another. There's another truism that hurt people. And this episode also illustrates that. The diviner explaining the fate of Solace doesn't make him necessarily empathetic, but it allows me to understand him for the first time in this series, which is a pretty big development from where we found ourselves in the pilot episode, where he's just kind of the mustache twirling bad guy.
Did it make you I don't know if you've watched Cobra Kai. Have you watched Cobra Kai?
I have not.
Okay. But there's a character there from the 80s who all we saw him as is the mustache twirling villain. And then all of a sudden, through great storytelling and great writing and great earned moments, he becomes sympathetic. Not necessarily likable, but sympathetic.
Yeah, I think it's closer to that. Like, I'm not on his side, but for the first time, I feel like I could understand why he's motivated to do what he does.
I understand, and I completely agree. And we're going to get a little bit more into that later on in our observations. But for now, buckle up, everyone, because Ashley is going to give you the recap of recaps, the mid-season finale, episode 10. Here we go.
Okay, Star Trek Prodigy, episode 10, A Moral Star Part 2, is written by literally everyone. Kevin and Dan Hageman, Julian Shauna Benson, Lisa Schultz, Nikhil S. Jeremy.
You'll get it one of these days.
I'm so sorry. I'm so I'm so sorry, Nikhil. I'm so sorry that you're going to come and listen to this and be like, she sucks every time. I'm sorry. Deandra Pendleton Thompson, Chad Quat, and Aaron Watke. Woo! Really nailing all these names. And it is directed by the ever amazing Ben Hibben. So, episode start. Dark Janeway and the Diviner demand that Gwyn gives them the protocore. They're in the same place we left them in the end of the last episode, but she is ready to use the heirloom, hey, we learned what it's called, against her father. Because it was a gift from the Diviner, though, he can control it too. Gwyn's not going to be a hero as quickly as she wants after all. Janeway takes her to the brig while the Diviner heads back to Tars Lamora to catch the star. Back on the asteroid, Dal and crew float around, corralling the miners and explaining how the universal translator works. Miners are able to communicate for the first time in years, maybe decades, and there's romance afoot. Jenka, Murph, and Rocktalk make it to the engine room. The Watchers are back on. This is bad news. The energy core is empty, and they have to work to fix it. This is badder news. But because she's the best, Rock knows exactly what to do. This is good news. Zero saves the Cadian orphan, and I cried piteously. Meow, meow, meow. Jacob gets in a cool fight sequence where he proves that he may be the best position for head of security, while Murph and Rock get the gravity and shields turned back on. Victory is short-lived, sadly, though, because the Diviner makes it back in record time and beams Dreadnought down to take back the protocore. More fights! The Cadian orphan shows up with more miners to help save the day, and Kitty's got claws. A really, really nice moment in this episode. But sadly... yeah, Robe Wolverine moment. Sadly, the Diviner beams out the protocore, and the Protostar is poised to warp away in a mere 10 minutes. A classic Star Trek ticking clock. But working together, the crew and the miners are able to use the Rev 12 to leave the asteroid behind and head out into space together with a full complement of characters that we think of and imagine when we think of a classic Star Trek ship. Back on the Protostar, Gwyn is disabling the shields under the watchful eye of Dark Janeway, despite the Diviner's orders to take Gwyn to the brig. And we reveal that she's never been dark at all. What? No, Goth, how dare you? Gwyn had updated her programming to prevent the Diviner's override. Hologram Janeway and the Diviner fight, and she kicks his butt. It's very cool. The Diviner begs his daughter to help him save their people with the confusing, which is confusing, just like I'm confused, because she thought that her race had been all destroyed. But here we learn that their home planet was destroyed in the future, and Solace sent the Diviner back in time, just like I predicted, to save their homeworld from ever being destroyed in the first place. Another classic Star Trek trope. This is predictably a lot to take in, and Gwyn demands that her father tell her the truth for once in her life. With the help of the holodeck, we get to see Solace rendered in 3D for the first time. Gwyn's home planet is beautiful. It's stunning. Her people are flourishing. Cut 50 years after first contact, and the planet is ravaged, a husk of its former glory. The Diviner blames Starfleet for the Civil War, which destroyed their people from the inside. His goal has always been to wipe out Starfleet from all of existence. Since the crew can only beam aboard the Protostar one at a time, Dal goes first, and he has no plan. Classic Dal. The Protostar has been designed to send a signal out and destroy all of Starfleet. After the obliteration of the Federation, the Diviner and Gwyn will return to Solace as heroes and live happily ever after. But Gwyn understands that one tragedy cannot be traded for another, no matter what her father thinks. Dal shows up, and it becomes the Diviner versus the Progeny very, very quickly. Teamwork makes the dream work, and when it seems like all is lost, Zero appears to confront the Diviner for the torture that they were put through. They remove their protective armor and illustrate for their crew and the Watchers just how powerful they really are. They're so powerful, in fact, that to gaze upon Zero directly will make you, quote, mad, end quote. Gwyn catches Zero's reflection in Dal's comm badge, and she is left stuttering. We can't go, we can't go, we can't go, over and over and over again. No one meant for her to be injured, but victory often comes at a price. Hologram Janeway leaves a proud log about her crew and their rescue efforts, saving hundreds of miners and returning them to their homes. The Diviner is left to his madness, and Gwyn is in active recovery. But only her memories of the event are lost. A very good recovery overall. Zero works hard to make sure that she will get back to normal. Murph eats a pad. Everyone is stronger together. Everyone is a prodigy in the making. Admiral Janeway, with the best hair in the game, gets the final scene of the episode, and she's coming, Chakotay. The end.
Well done, Ashley. Lots to cover in this episode, and we're going to give you a chance to breathe a little bit. And I'm just going to try and piece my thoughts together, because this episode has so much plot. I think that's why originally I thought that I was going to go in here in this episode fully thinking just I'm going to like take out a box of Kleenexes, maybe a crate with all the crying that I'm going to do because this show makes me do that. But I didn't in this episode, and I think I know why. And I think I talked about this before just a little bit earlier.
Tell me.
So much plot, so much that you have to juggle, so many details. So let's jump right into the observations. We're going to talk about some of the bigger bulleted point details. What did you see that just made you feel like, okay, this is the episode where it's tying things together, but it's also going to start answering some questions and asking new questions, or making us ask new questions?
First and foremost is the idea that it's okay to change. Rock and Jacob, when they're first in the engine room trying to turn everything back on, they discover that they might be best suited for the job that the other person was initially slotted for. Jacob probably is going to be the muscle, our Worf head of security type. Rock obviously poised to be head engineer, and that's okay. It is okay to change your mind. And in fact, it's something that you should do with grace. And I was really impressed with the fact that we had them handle this with just such ease. Like, there's a little bit of conflict leading up to it, but once the decision is made, they're like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, we're happy. We're good where we're at.
And maybe that's where, like, say, well, Rock obviously has learned a lot. She learned a lot in Time and Muck when she was gone. But I like that Jankum was like, hey, you know what? You just said a bunch of stuff I don't even understand. So, yeah. Sure. Why don't you take care of it? Because if you don't, we're going to get destroyed.
Hold the door.
Yeah, and I'll hold the door. And he was really good at combat. I mean, he was using his little hand machine thing to destroy stuff.
Cool. It was so cool to finally, like, pay that off. It's not just a cool aesthetic choice, or it's not just, like, a cool choice for action figures.
Mm-hmm. But it will be, too.
Yeah. How about you?
Don't put Baby Rock in a corner, ever. Right? I mean, what can she do? And I love that Rock stood up for herself. She's like, hey, look, I'm just better than just holding doors and being muscle. Like, I mean, she's been saying this entire time, and she's proved it time and time again. And I really, really love that. It's very earned for her, and it's very obviously it's very important that, you know, she can flex her abilities so that they can work like a team. And I think that's great. But it also allowed Jankum to flourish too, because he's like, hey, you know what? I can throw down too, just in my own particular percussive engineering kind of way. You said something earlier in your recap about the tradition of time travel, the trope of time travel in Star Trek.
Yeah.
So,
what are the rules of time travel? Because they're pretty loose in Star Trek. They're not as hard and fast as they are in some other franchises. We're definitely more wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, as you and I have evoked here on the show before. But could the Diviner's plan have actually worked is what my question is. Because the plan is that destroy Starfleet, live on Solace for the rest of our lives, be big damn heroes. And I don't know if this would have been a Marty McFly type future where if Gwyn and the Diviner and Dreadnought have succeeded, if they never should have existed at all, or if this is more of a fixed point in time thing where because the destruction of Solace was so important, it was never going to be avoided. So I just have some questions about the nature of time travel. And I think once you kick open the door of time travel in Star Trek, it's hard to walk back from a temporal Cold War. So I'm expecting to see this explored a little further. But by the end of this episode, I was kind of left wondering, like, would this actually have worked?
If Daniels shows up, Daniels is a character from Star Trek Enterprise. If Daniels shows up, this show will win me forever. You'll gain my forever ending allegiance and loyalty. So yes, time travel in Star Trek is obviously a tradition. In First Contact, we saw that when the Borg went back in time up to a point, the Borg were able to rewrite Starfleet history because they destroyed the Federation. The Borg took over. Then Picard went further back in time right before the Borg hit. And then they were able to get Zefram Cochrane in the air and yada, yada, yada. We all know the story. Is that what's happening here? Like you said, are they going to go far back enough? But then they're going to be going up against their own Federation. So, or at least that crew will be if they go back in time to stop the Federation. So that's kind of a paradox. Like, how does the Federation technology stop Federation technology when it never existed? Do they change the power struggle? So that'll be interesting to see. Again, question answered, but question raised. Darn these writers because they're so good that way. I'm completely intrigued and give you +1 on this podcast for a Prince reference.
Thank you. Yes, I wrote Purple Rain because purple has been the accent color of the entire series. If you don't know what an accent color is, it means some shows have a very strong color palette and Prodigy's very purple. Dal being the most obvious example of that. And Solace is also very purple. It's very blue. It borrows from the shades that we often see over Gwyn and the Diviner's white. So that stood out to me that they actually look like the planet that they come from.
Yeah.
But I also know that you have something about Gwyn in specific. Tell me your thoughts about the heirloom.
Called it. Rarely do I ever pat myself on the back more than twice or 3 times a day. Rarely. But with the heirloom, we saw that in a way in the Diviner's Cane in the flashback of 17 years ago. And there's no gift that the Diviner gives that doesn't come with consequence or with an ulterior motive. This is the Diviner we're talking about. And it just kind of begs the question. I'm going to throw this out there. It's not really in my observations, but what is he actually showing Gwyn that we can believe is real? It's just a hollow program. Everything that he does, everything that he's designed, everything that he chooses to show her has led her up to this moment. It's all manipulation as far as I'm concerned. So he shows her a holodeck program. Okay. That doesn't mean that Solace looks like that. It just means that he's made Solace look like that. Right? We've never seen Solace before ourselves. So what can we really believe? So that's the thing with every single gift that the Diviner has given Gwyn, whether it's a memory, whether it's an actual heirloom, I don't trust any of it. And I don't think any of you should too. That's just me though.
Very cool. We could see the actual Solace in a future episode.
We could. Or else maybe Solace doesn't even exist. Maybe it's just, again, just narrative the Diviner is feeding Gwyn for his bidding. We don't know.
Ooh, that's neat. Yeah. Something that you mentioned earlier that I loved was the lower decksification of the uniforms. They're not exactly lower decks. They don't have as prominent the white stripe and outline as the lower decks episode.
Right.
But I don't think that they are I don't think that the callback or the reference is accidental. I really liked seeing that uniform style, if not that exact design, in the Prodigy animation style. I love the blending of the two worlds. And I would love to see a character crossover. So just purely in my fan brain, I was like, oh my God, they're the lower decks uniforms. Ah!
That's actually sparked some really interesting conversation, a little bit of controversy on our Twitter feed. Some people have said, and with great illustrations and examples from previous episodes, that this is just the way that an admiral's uniform looks with the gold piping. But there are other officers on that bridge of the Dauntless that also have different colored piping. So there's that to contend with. Also, on the Trill officer, if you pull back far enough, those are the lower decks boots.
I just like Trills too. So when she showed up, I was like, I don't care who she is. She's perfect and I love her.
Oh, very much like channeling a lot of Jadzia Dax. Had the Jadzia Dax bun, the big blue eyes. But hey, you know what? We're all for it. It's the energy that we're drawing off of, which is amazing.
We had her in an Andorian, and I was like, I hope we see more of these Dauntless crew members going forward. But if people also want to weigh in on the uniform debate, at @ML_Prodigy, come tweet.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing about that scene, someone actually created a GIF from it. You actually did see a Vulcan walk behind Janeway and the other officers. So in one particular frame, just long enough, you saw a human, a Vulcan, an Andorian, and a Trill.
The triumvirate of the
major races of the Federation on that bridge, which was phenomenal. It's subtle and phenomenal. That's pretty much kind of like
not an
backbone.
accident.
No, not there. I don't think there are any accidents on this show. Let's talk about Huggable Janeway. Okay?
Let's.
Yeah, because there are a few scenes, especially when she said that Gwyn has given her hologram Janeway some upgrades to now be solid form when she chooses to be. I'm wondering why we didn't get that huggable rock moment, though, at the end.
There literally might not have been time.
Yeah. That would have been a great payoff. But now, what can't Janeway do? So Janeway has been broken down and reprogrammed from trainer to Rock's version to Gwyn's version to Goth version. So how much is her algorithm learning and being stored in the computer's database? There's a lot of... Yeah. Much to be considered there.
Okay.
Speaking of much to be considered, we have some pretty big topics to talk about now, because we're going to be transitioning into the morals and meanings and messages segment, which we love digging into, because I think this episode, like I said, it poses a lot of questions, doesn't give us as many answers as we would like, but if we got all the answers, then we wouldn't watch the show. So let's get into it, Ashley. Let's talk about some of the bigger morals and meanings and messages moments that you picked out that were important to you.
So the number one thing I feel like I learned from this episode is that Zero is very powerful. The Medusians are pretty nebulous, pun absolutely intended. And getting a glimpse of their full potential in the climax dramatic moment of this episode was incredible. If I were a member of the Protostar crew, I'd be very pleased indeed to have Zero on my side, because they have the potential to be an incredibly powerful enemy. I feel like of all the characters, they also remain the most shrouded in secrecy. And if their arc going forward is to maybe take on a more protective role of Gwyn, I'm very interested in that. But I don't think that's the first time we're going to see them touching their full potential. And that's the main thing that stuck out for me. I know you have more Cobra Kai to talk about, though.
I wanted to ask you a question when you were watching it for the first time. Mm-hmm. Did it strike you as being maybe a little too extreme for the young adult audience intended? That particular scene where, when you really closed in on the diviner, there were some pretty extreme emotional moments happening there.
I'm assuming that the intended audience is somewhere between 8 and 10, like a middle grade audience. Mm-hmm. And I don't think this is any scarier than something like Percy Jackson, or Harry Potter, or
okay.
So I wasn't particularly bothered by it. If I were younger than that, if I had been 6, I would have found that pretty scary. Mm-hmm. But I do think that Star Trek does a really great job across all series, including Prodigy, at walking the line between danger and control. I think Worf is a great illustration of that character, because the Klingons can be pretty scary. But sure. I think there were probably some younger viewers who maybe had to cover their eyes or look away. And that's fine too. I'm not the intended audience, and there's stuff that I can't watch. But I mean, it was I don't think it was too scary though. I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but it did strike me as the most extreme moment of kind of pushing the boundaries of their audience's expectations, the YA audience's expectations. But I think that's okay. I think that, I mean, when I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1982, when I was like in third grade, wow, yeah, my parents were like covering half that movie. I'm like, well, why did you bring me here to make?
Yeah, really.
Right? But yeah, going back to what you said, Cobra Kai is always in my thoughts because it's one of my favorite everything ever. Mercy is not a weakness, no matter what Cobra Kai tells you. Mercy is an actual, I think it's a pillar of strength. It's a pillar of responsibility. It's a trait that used at the right time in the right moments is something that can personally educate you. Hologram Janeway has taught our crew, our young crew, a lot of great lessons: teamwork, understanding, friendship, trusting leadership. But the one thing that I really wanted to see in this episode was her talking about the diviner, his plight, and perhaps not forgiving him, so to speak, but at least showing him some type of inkling of mercy, understanding of mercy. This is what Starfleet does, or how they treat their enemies or the threats against the Federation. Not throwing them on a planet alone, and how's he gonna eat? Things like that. You know, those are things that I think as an adult, maybe you think about. Maybe as a younger audience member, I think it would have been neat if they just said, we're going to put the diviner here. He's safe. He's not going to be harmed. He has enough food and water to get him by, but he is being punished for what he did. Mm-hmm. So there's a balance between punish and mercy. And I really hoped that they were going to land on that, at least in this episode. They might later on. I'm not sure. Kirk in Arena showed the Gorn mercy, and it proved to greater species in the universe that humans have the capacity for this greater philosophy of how to treat other life forms fairly in that moment. So that's what I was hoping to see a little bit there. And that kind of ties into your next point with the diviner.
Arena was the first episode of Star Trek I ever saw. My second big takeaway is that you don't owe your family anything. Found family, baby. We've been talking about it since the pilot episode. Just because you happen to be related to someone by an accident of genetics doesn't mean that you have to keep them in your life. The diviner is incredibly toxic on a number of levels, to the point of becoming a mustache-twirling villain at a lot of points during the series thus far. He has a trauma that he has not addressed, that he is taking out in unhealthy ways on all of those surrounding him, his daughter included. Whether or not what actually happened to Solace and their people is true, however he experienced it was traumatic. Whatever happened to him hurt him deeply. And Gwyn has been taking steps over these 10 episodes to heal her own inherited generational trauma that she got from being a clone and a daughter of the diviner. And stepping away from her father and not falling into his fears is something that I admire greatly about her character. But to your point, too, about kind of where the diviner ends up at the end of this episode, I don't think this is the last that we've seen of him. And I know that you have a thought about that too.
Yeah. You know, there's something about the diviner where we don't know kind of like the spectrum of what the Valnukat are capable of. Mm-hmm. I think that it's possible that even the diviner or his species, because they are also telepaths, have the ability to maybe resist other telepathic powers in such a way. Maybe that he was only affected by Zero's abilities up to a point and said, yeah, I'm beaten this day. I've been defeated this day. There are too many allies against me. It's just me versus the rest of this already well-trained young Starfleet crew. I think I'm going to back down for a second and regroup, refocus. I'm back on Tars Lamora. I wish they left me some food. That would have been helpful. Maybe some water. But it's time to regroup, refocus, get my dreadnought back, get my dreadnoughty back, and then touch base with the Order and see what they want me to do. So it's just a setback, I think, for the diviner. Because, again, we haven't seen the diviner's full potential, really. I think that it's great that the writers have led us down the path of, oh, he is vulnerable. Oh, he is mortal. Oh, he has weaknesses. I don't buy it. It's just because we haven't seen a greater power or a greater threat that makes the diviner less threatening as the villain right now. But what do you think actual Starfleet officers would have done to the diviner upon his capture? How would they have handled him differently? Would Janeway have, say, consulted with Chakotay or any of the other officers and say, should we bring him back to Starfleet? Maybe that was the diviner's plan all along. Take me back to Starfleet, Justice, so my Trojan horse of a ship, dismantles Starfleet from the inside.
I think that would probably have been his goal, which would have been intelligent, because I think if they would have captured the diviner and sort of sussed out his plan or part of his plan anywhere close enough to like a deep space or any kind of star base or anything like that, like we would have had a court martial for sure, or certainly an interrogation, if nothing else. And we don't really get the classic Briggs scene that I would think of, but maybe they're trying to tell us subtly, if you know a little bit more about Janeway and Chakotay's partnership or the way that a classic Starfleet officer is supposed to comport themselves, because none of the ones that we see in the show really follow the rules. That's what makes drama. Maybe they're trying to tell us that this non-traditional way of operating that the Protostar crew is taken on, maybe that's what's the right answer to solve this problem. Maybe that's why they're Prodigy.
Oh, what? Let's go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, Hologram Janeway's closing log is some of the best writing of the series so far. It's so freaking good. It will be performed by fans for years and years to come. I'm sure people are already doing it on the TikTok. I don't understand the TikTok. but to have to have her put into words, rather, how smart and talented each and every character was just really wonderful. To use a belabored metaphor, right? One finger is weak, but all five fingers together make us strong. The crew, not the kids, the crew is stronger together. And it also like low-key explains the thesis of the show. And so it sort of pleases me in that like narrative closing arc structure that we get toward the end of this episode. But we have spent a lot of time hearing the word progeny, and we have not heard the word prodigy as much. Progeny meaning a child, usually a female child thereof. Prodigy meaning a young person who's particularly gifted. So I think that they're also telling us that this is the title of the show, but also now they have fully earned what it means to be a prodigy, particularly Zero.
And we did mention that a little bit. This was kind of like one of our predictions of why this title is what it is, all the way back in our first episode where we talked about the Protostar, and Prodigy, so go back and listen to our first episode and see how brilliant we really are. Yeah, the one last thing I wanted to touch on, Hero to Zero. It's an old cliche about the heroic person doing the least heroic thing, or something that turns out to be the least heroic thing. Zero did the right thing. However, the fallout of what Zero did to the diviner hurt Gwyn. At least I think every character in their own way had a Hero to Zero moment where an action that they thought was the right thing to do laid them low and taught them a lesson. And I think that finally we come all the way back to Fugitive Zero, the character that actually was the catalyst that started the entire story from Lost and Found. And what does Zero learn? Zero learns something very important. And I think that that's going to inform Zero's decision whether or not to use that Medusan ultimate weapon power in a future episode. Because they know what's going to happen if anyone else is caught in the fallout, especially how hurt Zero became because they and Gwyn were so close. And they showed moments of their closeness throughout the course of the 10 episodes. So goes back to one of my original points. Revenge isn't a dish that is best served really anywhere, because things can happen that are bad for you or for your friends.
Best served the way a microwave burrito is. You think it's hot, but it's still cold.
And stale and bitter and hard.
And then you regret it about 30 minutes later.
Really. And anyone who took a bite from it also regrets it as well. We're coming close to the end of our show, Ashley, but there are a couple of really nice last ideas that we would love to share with the audience and just wrap up this 10-episode arc, this first 10 episodes for Star Trek Prodigy, before we get into a far longer break than we had before.
Yeah, and I mean, we won't be gone the whole time.
No,
but...
we will. Yeah, we'll get back into that towards the end of the show. But yeah, we're heading into the break, but we're going to leave you with some really profound thoughts.
Perhaps it's because I've also been watching Euphoria, which I don't necessarily recommend for our younger viewers. But this episode and the whole series thus far has really had me examining what it means to be in the last moments of your childhood. So leaving your childhood to step into adolescence is really hard. Leaving your adolescence to step into adulthood is even harder. And everyone on the Protostar crew, from Dal and Gwyn as some of the older states people, to Rock and Murph, who I think have been implied are at the younger end of the spectrum, is at a turning point in their development personally and narratively. And the show takes that struggle of internal beauty of a chrysalis about to break open and reveal a butterfly, and puts it on the outside with shiny things like explosions and spaceships and spacesuits. And the reason I use the word beauty is because despite those times being hard, they're some of the most impactful transitional periods of our lives. And in my opinion, this episode perfectly illustrates this pain via Gwyn. She finally gets told the truth about her very existence and her culture, only to be confronted with the further complication to her life. And that's going to stay with her from this point forward for the rest of her existence and the rest of her tenure on the show. And in the final moments of the episode, despite her recovery, we see her balk at that mention of Starfleet. When Dal says we're going to Starfleet, you see her take that pause. And I don't think this is an accident. And I think we're going to be along for the ride of her internal battle in the back half of the episode. And I think for a show that can easily be dismissed as being for kids, I think it's amazing that Prodigy can put all of this underneath a space adventure. I just think it's so well done. I just can't. Tell me your thoughts before I get too emotional.
Well, I love that in the Twitterverse, and not just in our feed, but in a lot of the other feeds that support Star Trek Prodigy, they're trying to encourage people to drop the quote-unquote kid show description of this series. Because, yes, sure, it was marketed. I think that the Nickelodeon logo, obviously, it informs people that it's of a certain audience range. But this entire series, for me, has done me a favor, a huge favor, and it really informed me and educated me of what that rating system really means and how it pushes it. And it opened my eyes to what I thought animation was and still is. I was fairly ignorant, I'll be the first one to admit that, of my expectations of what today's animation can offer. And that's, I think, why this series has been so important to me, because it's educated me. It's made me learn, not just about the series itself, but about my misconceptions or preconceptions or prepackaged ideas of it's just a cartoon. It's just animation. For me to have learned that, much like everything else in this series, you can't judge an animation by its cover or marketing materials or logos, etc. That was a big eye-opening moment for me. But in this episode in particular, the moment that Zero unleashed its power, their power against the Diviner, it really did push the limit of the young adult tone into what I believe was more of the mature audience range than I've seen in any of the episodes so far. And maybe it's because, as you said, Ashley, maybe it's because our young heroes are maturing, and we're watching them mature on screen. Perhaps their decisions that they've made reflect the extreme measures of the situations that they are in. And perhaps we are seeing them grow up past a certain expectation that was set in the lighter, earlier tone of, say, Lost and Found. You know, lighter tones in the series have probably been what do they say, subverted by expectation of all of the events that they've had to overcome and the learning experiences that they've had to endure. Like the Hobbits, for example. I know how much you love the Lord of the Rings.
Yes,
like the Hobbits,
you know, so happy.
from the Shire to the scouring of the Shire and everything in between, our crew will continue to change and will continue to grow over time. And we will be there to chart the course of those changes and perhaps, maybe sadly, watch them lose the twinkle in their eye and that childlike wonder and innocence, as we all do when the world becomes harder and challenges us at every turn. And when we're watched to either watch ourselves grow up or watch those around us grow up, as you said, from childhood to adolescence. And sometimes some more immediately than others. We saw this happen to Rock Talk and Time Amok. Mm-hmm. We saw that happen to a lot of the other characters in their own moment, in their own time, especially Zero in this episode. So conflict, life experience, time, distance, history, the way that you look at it from a learning point of view and the way that the writers are engaging that with us and tapping into that in the very back of our emotional expectations. That's what puts this series, for me, above more than just a kid's cartoon. But we'll see what happens after the break. We'll see where our expectations are met, and we'll see if more questions are answered with more questions. So one last really quick question, Ashley,
okay,
because we are towards the end of our episode. Mm-hmm. What do you want to see specifically in the next 10 episodes?
Ooh, well, I think I would be letting down our Mission Log listeners if I didn't say that I want to see some smooches. There's been a sad lack of smooches in the series thus far, which I think is a crime amongst the animated Star Trek right now. More kissing, please. Honestly, I would like to see some of the characters get rewarded. We know that a lot of the characters like Rock don't particularly remember their time before they were on Tars Lamora. We know that Jankum holds a little bit of his cultural identity, but not all of it. And I would like to see, since we have the power of the Protostar, to maybe explore what their worlds and their civilizations looked like. If we spent, because everybody got a developmental episode this season, I think that might be cool if we either went to home planets or we came across another Medusian and then Zero got a chance to learn something. And then, because I'm shocked we didn't get it to this point,
yeah,
where's Chakotay?
Exactly.
Where's Chakotay?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be the carrot that's dangling on the stick for probably until the end of this first season. And that's okay.
Like episode 18 or 19, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's okay, because as much as I would like to see Janeway and Chakotay get reunited for the reasons that are out there in the shipping verse, as they
Smooches.
say. That will be our smooches, maybe. I still want them to focus on the characters that they've created for us and the emotional connection that they've earned, throughout the course of this. We are emotionally connected to Janeway, of course, and to Chakotay, of course, especially fans of Voyager. But this is a different model, I think. I think that our crew, and watching them grow, I just want to see more of those moments, and especially more leadership and more lessons of how they support this found family. I think that that's going to be really, really, really important, especially for the younger viewers. All right, so
well
that's
said.
It. That's it.
Okay. Oh no, we've reached the end of our show.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you everyone for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. Like I said, we're not going anywhere. It's just going to be a little different. If you enjoyed our show and you would like to see what it looks like when it's a little bit different, please make sure that you smash that like and share and subscribe button. All those buttons are really important. Our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel. Hello if you're in 3D. Or find us on your podcatcher of choice. Smash subscribe there to smash like, write us a review. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, production and technical direction by the always beautiful and talented Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. And if you would like to support Mission Log directly, and you could smash that support button, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be with us again. And even though we will be on a much longer break between now and sometime later, quote unquote, later this year in 2022. And be assured that Ashley and I are working on plans to bring you some fantastic content between now and then. Special stuff. Just wait and see. That's why you have to like, share, and subscribe so you know when that special content is going to happen for you. But Prodigy will be back before we know it. And until then, we would like to, as we always do, leave you here at the end of the show with these very special incoming transmissions.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
Okay, what's your name and age?
Rook, and I'm 6.
Okay, Rook. Did you like tonight's episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part of the episode?
When he was in the place that he was sent to at the end.
You liked him drawing that picture of Zero on the ground?
Yeah.
Okay. And what lesson did you learn from the episode?
Is to talk to people.
Instead of trying to destroy the Federation, he should have talked to them and see if he could work something out?
Yes.
I think Gwyn was right about that. Talking's better, right?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Sarah.
How old are you?
6.
Okay, did you like that episode?
Yep.
What was your favorite part?
When he said, sorry to interrupt this beautiful moment.
Okay, and what do you think this episode was trying to teach us?
To work as a team.
Okay, and bonus question, who's your favorite character?
Gwyn or Murph.
Oh yeah?
Because Murph eats everything.
What's your name?
Dietrich.
How old are you?
3.
Did you like the episode?
Yeah.
What was your favorite part?
Them taking over the diviners.
Oh, that was pretty cool. What did you learn from the episode?
Diviner baddest person.
The diviner's the baddest person? Why is he so bad?
Because he treated them bad.
Because he treated them badly.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.